When it comes to smart cities, few are smarter than the city of Los Angeles. I'm Tanya Hall for Tech Republic, and joining me is Jeanne Holm. She is the Deputy Chief Information Officer for the City of LA and former Chief Knowledge Architect at NASA. Welcome, Jeanne.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, smart cities, huge conversation across the United States as far as globally. What is LA's definition of a smart city?
So LA's idea of a smart city is to be the most connected city on the planet. What that really means is thinking about how we connect people to the city government, people to each other during times of emergency, and making sure that that cohesion is really part of our resiliency.
LA has a series of pilot projects to meet goals of data, mobility, and infrastructure as a service. Talk about some of those.
Sure. So we have, as you might have heard, the number one traffic in the country. So it's very difficult sometimes to get across Los Angeles, and we're doing a lot to help with that challenge. Part of that is building out our light rail system across the city. We actually have 28 major transportation projects happening before 2028, when we will be hosting the Olympics for the third time here in Los Angeles. And all of those transportation projects are looking at how we not just make people move faster on existing roads, but really how we redesign the urban space. So when we think about transportation, we think about autonomous vehicles, we think about the use of the curb, we think about making the city more pedestrian and bike friendly, and we also think about this three-dimensionally. So not only are we looking at autonomy on the ground, but eventually we'll be looking at autonomy in the air.
Unlike most urban areas that have traffic issues, you're actually dealing with a little bit different dynamic in that you're spread out. So you're distance wise, you have a greater real estate to cover. Are you including the counties in that as well?
Yeah, so transportation doesn't stop at a city border. There are 88 cities in the county of Los Angeles. We are one of the largest counties around the country. We're also the most impoverished county in the country. So sometimes you think about poverty in other parts of the United States, but it's actually here in Los Angeles. And so we have to think about affordability, accessibility, equity when we talk about transportation. And then we do have to think about the fact that we're trying to move over 500 square miles just inside the city when we're moving people around. So we work really closely with our regional metro as well as other city buses and city departments. And so if you go to Union Station downtown, which is the main train station, you'll find buses from lots and lots and lots of different cities pulling in and taking people all across the region.
How are you focusing on public transit in that way as far as data and artificial intelligence and making it an Internet of Things, a smarter public transit system?
Right. So it's one thing to say we need people to move faster or, put people into bigger vehicles, but it's another thing when we really think about how people are moving. So we're actually doing a pilot funded by the Toyota Mobility Foundation that's looking at counting the number of people, pedestrians and bicyclists moving through city spaces. So traditionally, this has been like just super manual, where people are actually having to view videos and make hashtag counts. Now what we're doing is we're using a combination of computer vision and machine learning, partnering with Cal State LA, which is one of our local universities, to really be able to use really antiquated technology in a super new way so that we can use city infrastructure to automatically count the number of people passing through a space, even when they pass in and out of shadow, when they walk around in circles, when they're going through in the dark. And this just makes it so that we're able to better design that whole space for people and for bicyclists into a safer aspect. So as we do this, as we put sensors on city vehicles, as we work in integrating data with Waze and other transportation systems and apps, we really just want to make sure that we're moving people through these spaces faster and better ways and safer ways. And then also really just thinking about how we redesign the city around that. So how do we change parking when we no longer have to park our own cars, when we're using either today Uber and Lyft, or in the future where we're using, Uber Elevate and getting there through the air.
I know that LA residents and people in that part of the country love their cars and their automobiles. Are you ready for a connected vehicle and smart vehicles? And how are you going about preparing for that next evolution of the automobile?
So we're working with manufacturers, car manufacturers, to really understand what they're having in mind for both the experience of people moving across the city, which is indicative of sort of how fast the uptake will be. And we're also looking at the changes in boomers and millennials. So millennials are starting to move away from the idea of car ownership, and the boomers are starting to move into an area where they may start wanting to have more continued independence, but not necessarily have the hassle or the need to own a vehicle. So we're really looking at either end of the spectrum, starting to drive this idea of the need for autonomy and mobility. And then the second piece that we're really looking at is this idea of equity and just getting people ready for it. So one of those is simply with today, electrification. Right? So one of those things that we've done is we, of course, have electric rideshare across the city, but we also put in Blue LA, which is one of our electric car share programs that are focused just on low-income neighborhoods. And so for just $2 to $10 an hour, you can rent an electric vehicle in one of these neighborhoods and be able to really get a sense of the experience and understand it so that we can really make sure that everybody starts getting comfortable. Part of that is also putting 5G across the city. So we're working with all of our telecommunication providers, helping to figure out how we can expedite permitting and be able to find affordable ways for them to build out really amazing networks to connect everybody across all 4 million Angelinos.
Okay, LA is situated on one of the largest earthquake faults in the nation. How are you preparing for the next shakeup call, if you will?
Yeah, so each year we have the Great Shakeout actually on October 18th at 10:18 in the morning. And that's like a massive annual statewide drill that we all sort of work together. Part of what we're doing is we've just launched just 3 weeks ago or so our new resiliency plan for the city of Los Angeles, which puts together 98 different projects that look at how we can be resilient for fire, flood, earthquake, tsunamis, anything that might hit Los Angeles, including things like climate change and heat. One of the very exciting initiatives that we're working on right now, with a partnership with AT&T, is an early earthquake warning app. So this will give people 1 to 2 minutes warning that an earthquake is actually coming. So we have this available in early versions working with the U.S. Geological Survey. They have in-ground sensors all up and down the West Coast. We're able to get a detection that the ground shaking is starting to occur and be able to get a message out to people faster. And so that means that not only do we give people information so that they can act more safely, but that's an automated message, right? So it's actually using ActiveMQ. We're able to get that message out quickly across to other machine sensors. And so we're able to open our firehouse doors. We're able to lock the cranes up at the port so that those ships can get out during an earthquake in case there's structural damage. We can bring elevators to the ground floor. We can put out public announcements over PA speakers in our schools. And so all of these things can happen automatically when we know that a big earthquake's coming.
Tell us about the Los Angeles Cyber Lab.
Yeah, so our Cyber Lab is an amazing brainstorm by the Information Technology Agency here at the City of Los Angeles in partnership with the Mayor's Office of Public Safety. And so we get hundreds of millions of intrusion attempts every week into the City of Los Angeles. And what we're trying to do is really share the information about what those kinds of attempts are, how to protect yourself, and really how to make sure that you're cyber safe online. Not particularly focused only on the individuals, but actually focused on our local businesses. So we have a huge number, like any big city, a huge number of small businesses who are not necessarily poised to be cyber safe and to really be like defensible online. And so what we do is we have over 300 businesses now that are signed up with the Cyber Lab, and we share each month different things that will help keep them cyber safe and look at the sort of regional intrusion issues that are going on and make sure that we are working with local law enforcement, national law enforcement when necessary, even international law enforcement. We just helped to break up a Jakarta-based cybercrime ring with the FBI that was trying to intrude into the city of Los Angeles last year.
Talk about I3. What is that?
So I3 is a partnership with the University of Southern California, USC. And what it does is it connects all of the different people working in and around the Los Angeles and Southern California region around the Internet of Things. So these are people who run businesses that are putting out sensors. We want to make sure that we have standard ways of gathering the data from all of those sensors. At the City of Los Angeles, where we have 48,000 employees, we really want to be able to understand all the data that's coming back from sensors that might be on our street sweepers, our trash trucks, our police vehicles, body-worn cameras, streetlight sensors, the 5G devices that are going across. So there's this plethora of IoT devices. And the problem is that the data comes back in lots of different ways. So I3 is at the heart of trying to make that intersection work between many, many, many different types of data, and a federated view of that data that lets people like the city be able to really act upon that data in ways that will help to improve public safety.
Most cities have internal communication barriers. In fact, I would say pretty much every city has had to figure out how to overcome that. How are you breaking down the silos between departments? And is GeoHub a part of that?
Yeah, so I think at any big organization, whether it's a city or another government entity or just a large, historic organization, you're going to find silos. And so we have a couple of ways that we're working on making sure that we connect across it. So there's some pretty traditional ways. We have an IT, Information Technology Policy Committee that represents each city agency, and there's 42 or so different big city agencies. And they meet monthly to talk about issues around social media policies or security issues, changes in passwords and that kind of thing that we're working on. And so that group kind of coordinates in a traditional way. GeoHub is a newer way that really looks at taking mapping data and layers it in different ways. So for example, we recently had wildfires here in Los Angeles. And part of what we were trying to do is to be able to have layers available that we could activate at any time, looking at where vulnerable populations are, where city assets are, where we need to evacuate people from and what shelters people can go to. And so we want to make sure that the GeoHub is the place where every city department or every partner organization, because sometimes our universities or community-based organizations are part of that, can really put that information together. And then secondarily, we also, as you mentioned, social media is one of the keys to trying to get people to collaborate. We use Hootsuite in the background, which lets us share across over 100 or so different city accounts, the kind of messaging that we're doing. So we can kind of look at trends, what are the popular hashtags, who's got a new message during a disaster or an emergency. We all rally around a specific department to make sure we're amplifying their message. And so it's a super way to coordinate all of the sort of broadcast of social media across tons of different networks in order to be able to really hone a message, get it out to people, and continue that idea of being the most connected city on the planet.
Well, I'm sure Ryan Holmes and the team at Hootsuite will appreciate that plug. They're a great team. Jeanne, I really appreciate your time. If somebody wants to connect with you, maybe find out more about the work that you're doing or just connect with you personally, how can they do that?
Well, I'd love to connect with people. So you can follow me on Twitter or just DM me or connect to me there. I'm at Jeanne Holm. That's JeanneHolm. Connect to me on LinkedIn. I'm the Jeanne that used to be at NASA. And then just to find me over, just tweet us out at the LA City, which is at LA City on Twitter.
Thanks again for your time. And if you want to connect with me, you can find more of my interviews right here on Tech Republic or ZDNet. And if you'd like to connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, go to my website, tanyahall.net, for all the links to my social channels. And you know what? I love to chat. So if you tweet me at @TanyaHallRadio, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.